Hadn't planned to tell a story today, but gloomy outside, Saturday. No place to go, nothing to do. I'll just tell another story. So, this one is going to be about England to a certain degree. I've had several requests for telling about my trip to England. So, first of all, I want to show you my shirt. A new shirt. Of course, it's from Goodwill. You know that already, or I wouldn't be showing it to you. And I just happen to have some jewelry that went with it. I like animal print. I was going to use I was going to use these glasses, but I don't need glasses for this story. But we'll see how they look. Well, they're not quite the right shade of brown, but they'd be okay. But I'll save those for later when I'm going to be reading something. Now what I want to do is sit still because Jan has noticed that I do a lot of this when I'm talking. She said, "Mom, just sit back and relax while you're talking." So she was standing here and I said, "Okay, you mean like this?" I'm relaxed. Well, obviously you can see that didn't work too well. So I'm going to try to stay still while I tell this story. Now this is a long story, so I am doing it in 2 parts. Today you get the first part. It's about when I won the contest, the decorating contest. You know all about that. And it turned out the prize was round trip for 2 on the Queen Elizabeth II ship to England. Pretty exciting. Who would ever have dreamed I'd win a contest like that? So, my sister and I, we started making plans. Now I'm telling you. We had several months because we had to plan the cruise so that we could spend a few days in England before we get on the ship and come back home. We didn't want to get there and have 3 days. You can't do much in 3 days, so we found one of the trips where we would get 9 days and we could go on a land tour. So that's the one we chose. So during the months that we were waiting, we did a lot of shopping. We went to all the department stores and the dress shops, and we were getting in on every sale that we could, and I'm telling you, we spent a lot of money on new clothes. We were going to be dressed to the nines. And along with that, I had enough time. I lost 40 pounds. I was looking pretty good. Yeah, I thought I was. My clothes looked nice on me. So by the time we got ready for our trip, it was in June. And we go to the airport. We fly to New York City. We land and we get on a shuttle for going to the pier. Now we're on the back seat of this shuttle and it's full, and a couple, 3 or 4 seats in front of us. The gentleman turned around and looked at us and said, "I'm Benjamin, this is my wife, we're from Toledo. where are you lovely ladies from? Now, he was a perfect gentleman. There's no question about it. And, of course, we said Tennessee. Well, that's all we had to do. He fell in love with our southern accent. So we get off the shuttle at the pier. We're walking with them. We go into this huge room where we have to wait. The ship has not arrived yet. What we learned was there had been a problem on the ship. A propeller or something wasn't working, so the ship couldn't move. And we were 5 hours waiting for the ship to disembark. I guess it's disembark, yeah. So we're outside watching, looking out at the waters and the tugboats and what have you. And Benjamin, he's well informed about any subject you want to talk about. And he would describe things to us. And the ship started coming in, and he explaining to us how the tugboats guide the ship into port. The sirens, we can count on them, can't we? Okay, he's describing the tugboat guiding the ship in. Now, we've been standing and waiting a long time, and he said to us, you stick with us. We've done this before, and we'll show you everything you need to do. We had to get checked in at different counters and things. Well, my sister grabbed his coattail. She was hanging on to him for dear life because she wanted to make sure we got on that ship and everything was in order. Now, we got settled on the ship. We were in first class. We had first class accommodation. We were in the first class dining room. They were in the next level down, so they were in a separate dining room. We had made no plan to get together, nothing. But before we got on the ship, while we're standing there at the pier, Benjamin describing the tugboats, Sandy said to me, where in Tennessee do you live? And I said, knowing that she wouldn't know small town in Tennessee, I said, we live near Knoxville. She said, well, I have a friend in Tennessee. And I said, well, where do your friends live? And she said, they live in Clinton, Tennessee. And I said, that's where we live. What are their names? She told me. She said, I was in her wedding as maid of honor in Toledo several years ago. And she married a man from Tennessee. Well, she told me what his name was. I said, he's the district attorney in the county. I motioned to my sister, get over here. Sandy, tell her what you just told me. And she told her, I have friends in Clinton. Their names are such and such. I don't remember the name at the moment. My sister went, oh, I know them. I work with him at the courthouse. Well, I also knew him because the office I worked in, he was in and out of that office for different reasons on different occasions. So I didn't know his wife, but I knew him. Well, right there, we'd made a connection. Couple from Toledo and 2 ladies from Tennessee have a common interest. Now we get on the ship, and we made no plan to get together for anything. That was it. we went to dinner that evening, and we were sitting at a table beside the window with two British couples, very, very nice people. And after we had dinner, we were going to go to the Queen's Lounge because that's where they had the dancing. And my sister and I we wanted to dance because they have gentlemen hosts that take care of people like us who have no one to dance with. So they take care of us when we want to dance. So we start out of the dining room, and we're on the upper landing, fixing to go down the steps. Now I've got my video recorder. I'm going to take pictures of everything and everywhere. So I've got my big camera with me. And as we start down the steps, we look ahead of us, and sitting on a landing, a hallway landing, what it was Benjamin and Sandy. He's dressed in his black tuxedo. She's got on a beautiful pink glittery dress. Looks very pretty. And he sees us coming down the steps, and he says, "Give me your camera. I want to get pictures of you beautiful ladies as you come down the stairs." Okay, I hand him the camera, and he takes pictures of us, and we talk. I said, "Now give me the camera back. I want you to tell me your history." I said, "But first, I want you to tell me about Paul Newman." He had already told us that he knew Paul Newman. He went to college with Paul Newman. It was a men's school, and they were both in the drama club together. And of course, they had to have female parts, so Benjamin was the type that he put on his blonde wig and the big long red fingernails, and he would play the female roles. And as he said, Paul Newman was the star of every play, and I was in the play. And he told about afterward they would go out together and have drinks, and one of the things he said was, Paul could drink me under the table. So I said, "Well, now tell me about yourself." He said, "Okay, we were living in Philadelphia, and I was 2.5 years old. And my mother would get on the train with me, and we would go to New York City to see the Broadway shows. I saw every Broadway show that has been in New York since I was 2 years old." Well, don't you think I was impressed? Yeah, I was impressed. He went on to tell about where he went to school. He had one brother. He went on to college. From there, he worked on Wall Street a couple of years, and this, that, and the other. And then years later, he met Sandy. And they were both professors at the college there in Toledo. They worked together, and they eventually married. So this was his story. Now, my sister and I would go into the Queen's Lounge, and we'd be dancing, and we'd look up, and there would stand Benjamin and Sandy. When they had performances in the Grand Lounge, we saw Hal Linden, we saw Rich Little, I can't remember who else, and we would sit together, and a couple from our dining table would sit with us because they were from Britain, and they were both detectives, and they were so much fun, and they could tell us so much about where to go, what to do while we were in England. So we had a great time. Every evening we were in the Grand Lounge together. By the time we got to London, they were staying in a bed and breakfast, and we were at the, I forget, it was the park. Anyway, it was a hotel right beside Hyde Park. We could look out our window and see the people walking through the park. So the next morning, here comes Sandy and Benjamin. They walked everywhere. And they picked us up, and we went to Hyde Park, and we did a lot of roaming around. And Kensington Palace, we saw that, and the little lake. We went somewhere for lunch. Anyway, the next morning, my sister and I went on the land tour for 9 days. When we got back, Sandy, Benjamin, my sister and I got back on the ship, headed back for the United States. We were together so much and enjoyed each other so much that when we got to New York, they took one plane, we took another to get home. That wasn't the end of our relationship. We stayed in contact with each other, write little notes back and forth, and occasionally a telephone call. So, let's see, the trip was all in January and July. June and July. Christmas comes. They go to South Carolina for their Christmas vacation. And they have to come right down I-75, right past Clinton. So they stop. They spend the night with us. They have Christmas dinner with us. And they go on their way to South Carolina for a week. We're still good friends. The next year, 1st of January, they're headed back to South Carolina. But this time they invite us to go with them. All expense paid trip. So off we go. We had a full week, but let me tell you this. In January, it's as cold in South Carolina as it is in New York City. It was cold. But we didn't let that stop us. We were down at the Battery with the wind blowing in our faces. And we were going out to dinner together. Well, we just had a grand week. We came back. Now it's getting near Christmas again. But what we had done on that trip, we'd gone shopping. And you know, all the stores put all the Christmas stuff on sale, 70% off. And Benjamin knew that I was very crafty. He was very supportive of what I was doing. He just thought it was wonderful that I was so interested in decorating and craft work. And he was very good at offering suggestions and ideas. So we are in Dillard's, and we're looking at all the sale stuff, and they had some cheapy Santa Clauses, those that are about 15 inches tall. Not the kind I would buy, but they were okay. So he bought one of them, and he said, "Would you redo this Santa for me?" I said, "Sure." So fall comes around, and I said, well, it's time for me to start working on Benjamin's Santa, because he'll want it for Christmas. I got it all made up, and I'm going to show you the picture. I called it my Alaskan Santa. So I want you to see what it looked like when I finished. Let's see, can you see that okay? There he is. He's all dressed in fur. Got the beard, the fur hat. He had on a white silk shirt under that coat. I hunted for 6 months to find that goose that was sticking up out of the back of his black bag. I searched from store to store looking for the right miniatures to go with the Alaskan Santa. So this is what I ended up with when I was finished with him. So I packed him up, mailed him to Benjamin. I already knew they were planning to go back to England for Christmas. So I gave the package time to get to him, and I couldn't wait for him to respond because I knew I would get an immediate response from him, a thank you, and I knew that he would blow it up a little bigger than it needed to be in his thank you. And I waited a day or two, and I thought, I wonder if he got my package. So at work one day, I said to one of my co-workers, she'd seen the Santa, and I said, do you think it'd be all right if I called and asked if he got my gift? She said, well, give it 2 more days. He'll definitely have received it by then. Just wait 2 more days, and then if you haven't heard from him, then call him. Okay, that night, I'm sitting there watching TV. Phone rings. It was Sandy. Sandy didn't sound right. I said, Sandy, what's wrong? And she said, Pat, my Benjamin is gone. Well, I just weakened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He had had a cerebral aneurysm and died immediately. Well, this was a situation. Sandy had no support. She had no family. All of her family was gone. Not even any cousins she could turn to. And Benjamin had one brother, and his brother was in Las Vegas. So Sandy had to call and tell him, and of course he immediately canceled his vacation, came back to Toledo. So Sandy was really alone during this time. So after she gets back from the Christmas week off, the college want to do a memorial for Benjamin. She really didn't care for the idea, but he'd been teaching there for a long time. Everybody liked him. And so she gave in, and she said, I'm going to have to speak at the memorial. This was something she didn't do. She was sort of a laid-back, quiet person, and she didn't think she could handle it. She began looking for materials about Benjamin and his life, and she was going to have to make her speech. She didn't know what to do. Now, during the time after we came back from England together, I had the video. I had 6 videos and about 250 photographs of everything that we did in England. But I had the video that I had taken of Benjamin telling his life history on the QE2. He was sitting on that sofa, and the backdrop was a huge tapestry of Queen Elizabeth crowning the ship with the bottle of champagne. That was what stood behind them. She said, "If you don't mind, I'm going to use that video and let Benjamin tell his own story." That's what she did. The room was full of people. There were 5 monitors scattered around the room. She was very nervous about it. And she turned on the video, and the crowd of people got to watch Benjamin tell about his life from the age of 2 until he met Sandy. There he was in his black tuxedo, and his wife sitting beside him as he told his own story. I've always remembered that, and I thought, isn't it amazing how that came about? That I was going to video a man that in a very short time he was going to be telling his own life history. So that's the story I wanted you to hear. There's more to the story, but I'm going to do it on a second video. So you consider this as part 1. And also, I want you to understand that Sandy and I have continued our friendship for 29 years. I've been to South Carolina with her at least 10 or 12 times. We've traveled to Gatlinburg. I can't remember. I visited her. In fact, I told you the story about Greenfield Village. It was Sandy that took me to Greenfield Village. I would never have seen the place if she hadn't taken me there. It was Sandy that took me to the oldest theater in Michigan. And I got to see Singing in the Rain on stage. You know, Gene Kelly, when he was dancing in the street in the rain. And I remember, it was a beautiful old theater. And I remembered thinking, how are they going to do that rain scene with him dancing? Just couldn't figure out what were they going to do for rain. Folks, I'm telling you, they had the rain scene on stage. They must have had some good plumbers, because the floor was situated so that the water drained off the stage. You couldn't tell it was draining, but all of that water that fell, and the young man that was dancing in the rain, that was performed. Now that, to me, it was exciting. I'd never seen anything like that before. And I said, I'm seeing it in the oldest theater in Michigan. Now, don't ask me what town it was in, because I can't remember that part. But these were the things that Sandy and I did for the next 27 and a half years. And she's still in Toledo, and it's been a while since I've seen her, and I'm thinking we've got to plan a trip together again soon. So I wanted you to hear this story. I wanted you to see what it must have been like to watch someone at his own memorial, telling his own life history. That's it. Wait for part 2. And thank you.